Before I start my speech, I would like to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Doesn't that sound familiar? Students every day are required to stand for the pledge before their morning announcements. This speech focuses on Brown versus Board of Education, the landmark case of 1954 that integrated public schools in America. As students of color and of various backgrounds, we have excelled through many years of schooling, whether that may be private or public schools, Catholic or non-affiliated, charter schools, and likewise. As a student today and a person of color, I have experienced firsthand what Brown versus Board changed in schooling, understanding that I am at an equal access of educational opportunity as my peers. The landmark case overturned what was Plessy versus Ferguson, the separate but equal doctrine that claimed that separate facilities were inherently equal. But as education was concerned, Brown versus Board of Education changed that and integrated white students and black students into the same schools, gaining an equal opportunity to the same education. So this case has introduced us to the integration of America's public schools, an increase in the enrollment of private schools, and a theory of white flight as it affects our neighborhoods. So let's first take a look at how Brown versus Board of Education impacted our future as students. For one, segregation in schools violated the 14th Amendment that all citizens are equal under the Equal Protection Clause. According to teachingamericanhistory.org, Judge Warren claimed that the children were deprived of equal educational opportunities, and that was the basis of his decision. And the separate Plessy versus Ferguson was the basis of this case, and the overturning that separate facilities can be equal, but when it comes to education, that's a different story, because this is the future of our America. Education is important. And without Brown versus Board of Education, we would not have this. Secondly, while Brown versus Board of Education desegregated public schools, it also contributed to the enrollment of private schools. In the history of private schools and race, white students left public schools and dove to both traditionally and newly formed private schools from 1950 to 1965. Private school enrollment grew at unprecedented rates all over the nation, while the South having the largest growth. And due to the overturn of separate but equal doctrine, white students and families decided that integrated schools weren't what they wanted to continue their education due to xenophobia and racist backgrounds. Also, government funding did not support the establishment of private schooling, and claimed that many of the private schooling done in the South was due to segregation academies. Lastly, Brown versus Board of Education introduced the idea of white flight as it affects our neighborhoods. As more minorities move into white spaces, the higher the threat that white Americans felt. Research shows that the more white Americans perceived this foreign cultural threat, the more they reported wanting to move out of those communities. The University of Chicago says. There may be a more conflict resulting from Brown versus Board of Education due to white students not wanting to be in the same schools as their minority counterpart, which was felt due by, this is separate but equal, and then that's Linda T. Brown. This is this is one of the Little Rock 9 students, and this is basically how white students felt when black students were moving into their schools. So they were clearly angry, and they didn't want to be in the same schools with them. So parents were concerned, and they intended to move to private schools. They intended to move away out of the districts, just so they didn't have to attend those same schools that black students went to. So they were definitely concerned about black students just changing the culture of the school, and just they didn't want them to get the same opportunity as their white child did. So finally, in conclusion, the landmark case of Brown versus Board changed what American public schools look like, contributed to private schools and the white flight, And the speech was also intended to inform students on the impact of the decision and how it impacted students, neighborhoods, and American law. And as Reverend Martin Luther King once said, I had a dream that one day this nation would rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Thank you.